Do market makers control the algorithms in a given stock or given company? What is going on, guys? Lottery Stocks here. Today we are going to be going over AMC, and this may be a little bit more of a long video than the daily updates we have. I've been digging throughout the day and I find some things pretty interesting, and I want to warn you guys what could come up and what could possibly happen for earnings. I want to touch on market makers, some things going on with GameStop shares and the split, and also the S&P 500, but this is mainly an AMC video, so if that is what you're here for, then congrats. All I ask you guys to do is please smash that like, since I did take the time out of my day to do this, so you guys do not have to. Let's get into it. Along the same lines, market makers can artificially push prices around by entering fake orders. Say a market maker issues an order to buy 100,000 shares of a stock but withdraws the order after only buying 10,000 shares. In that case, the market maker can temporarily move the price of a stock up and create a larger spread in the process. Okay, so a market maker buys 100,000 shares of a stock, really only buying 10,000 shares. This is going to cause a temporary spike in an underlying security's price, and until retail, essentially up until retail buys 90,000 worth of shares, the market maker can then drop the 90K that was actually not purchased with the 100,000 buy order, almost acting as an algo, right? As an algorithm. This is pretty interesting because it can happen vice versa. Whether they sell a certain amount of shares of a stock, wait for that stock to be bought up, and slap it again. Although this isn't causing any sort of thing other than the bid-ask spread being temporarily spread out so that market makers can create more cash or capital. But in the end, right, it's probably not a good idea for market makers, but I'm not positive if I'm wrapping my head around this correctly. It just seems absurd to me, the things I find out on a daily basis of how market makers and institutions can really control the markets. Okay, so this is the first thing I wanted to look into. Guys, AMC earnings is coming up on August 4th. I took a look at each time we had earnings and the dates we had them on. Okay, so each earnings until Q2 of since Q2 of 2021 has been a beat. 16%, 4%, 5 and 5. Okay, so we have May 9th, we have March 1st, we have November 8th, and we have August 9th. Now, if we go over to the chart, this is pretty crazy, and I know it looks like a mess, but just try to bear with me here. We have each time earnings did come out for the stock. Now let me take this out so you guys can see this a little better here. Take a look at when earnings hit. Okay, as soon as earnings hits, you have this slap down. Okay, this at the beginning, you see it here at the beginning. Even though earnings does beat, you see it here at the beginning, and you see it here at the beginning each time earnings does hit. So ultimately, off the rip, what people would expect is, whether AMC comes up to 16 in that time period, whether it does not, it's going to get smacked down to a certain point, essentially, right? Here's what I find interesting. If anybody in here in the comments is a crypto analyst or whatever and knows how to decode something, please reach out to me or just drop a comment down below so I can answer it. Here's what I find pretty interesting. This is what plays out right about here. This is what plays out right about here. And this is what plays out right about here. Now, these two are the same. Okay? Try and stick with me, guys. These two are the same exact sort of cycle that play out. But here's what's interesting. Okay? This earnings compared to this, okay? This is where essentially you see same inverse. Okay, what I mean by that is this first sell-off you have here. This first sell-off you have here. Okay, this pop-up you have, and essentially leading to a peak. This pop-up you have same. Okay. It doesn't lead to a peak. Instead, it leads inverse to a bottom. Okay, not essentially a bottom, but a temporary bottom. Okay, this is what I find interesting. Now, the next, right, comparing this cycle to this cycle from when earnings hit, this is essentially what you would see. You would see same, inverse, inverse. And what I mean by that is you see the sell-off happen, right? And I got to make this precise so you guys tell what I am essentially seeing here. This part, this sell-off happen, okay? Right? And then you see this happen inverse, right? This happens opposite of what you saw there. And then essentially they both peak out, right? They both peak to a point. So you have same inverse inverse, and then you have same inverse same. So I think this is pretty interesting, and I think it is a way for market makers to essentially speak to each other or decode and essentially guess the next price movement of the stock, whether this is on earnings or whether this is through the next cycle. Now, as I was trying to break it down, I saw that, you know, you'd see a sell-off up to this earnings, and then a tick up into this earnings, a sell-off into this earnings, and then another sell-off, a slight sell-off, and now we've been trading sideways. This is the only time the period is different, okay, between the earnings. So essentially what I can take from this and what we know already is that if Adam Aron doesn't pounce, something is probably not going to happen in the near future, as they know how to manipulate the price. I'm excited for Adam Aron's pounce, okay? This, I believe, is going to be on Thursday, August 4th, when Q2 earnings is coming out. And he didn't say on Q2 he's going to pounce, but he did say at some point up on that date or after, there will be a pounce upon short sellers. So what we can guess up to this point is pretty scary. Up from today to tomorrow, we are still staying in this box that I thought we would be in from today into tomorrow. And then we are entering what I would call, you know, the death zone for short sellers, where I think volume is going to pick up and we do have a chance for a next leg up, especially that it's surrounding earnings. I think this is pretty interesting. Now, here's what else is interesting about these cycles and about these plays, right? This is the first thing that happened, right? This is just the bars pattern. Keep in mind after each earnings. Now, if I, mirror this, this is going to essentially line up with the next earnings play, right? If I mirror it, right? This is why it's so important to pay attention when cycles play out inverse and when cycles don't play out inverse, because you can track them. Right now, if I mirror this one and drag it over, it's not essentially the same, right? But they did both find a peak, and this both played out inverse at certain points in the cycle. Okay, so everything is pretty interesting the way you see it. Now, with that being said, if this flipped is this, right? If this mirrored is this and this mirrored is this, you would assume that this mirrored would be that. Okay, in that case, it's not true. Again, we have same inverse same. Therefore, this sell-off is the same. The sell-off is the same. This valley is not compared to this peak. This is where it plays out inverse, and then they both get a rally. Okay, this is where I'm just getting confused. I can't decode it as much as I want to. If someone in the comments can please decode this, please decode it for me. Okay, so the next thing we're going over is BlackRock lost the largest amount of money lost by a single firm over a 6-month period in the first half of this year, 1.7 trillion of clients' money. Now, this is interesting because if we go over to 13F filings, we can see that since June 30th, BlackRock still does hold their AMC position. Okay, so this is a key thing to pay attention to. The next thing I wanted to jump into is Dave Lauer posted this. Sounds like GME stock split dividend has completely destroyed some brokers' back office systems. I keep hearing about the nightmare of dealing with TDA. Also sounds like the overseas brokers are having some serious problems, and German brokers are struggling getting shares to people. My opinion is that at this point it is a bit late in the game. If you still haven't received your shares, it's time to get concerned. For U.S. brokers, you should push hard to get someone senior who can help. Overseas, it's less clear to me what your options are. People keep asking me whether this is the first split as dividend and why brokers are having such problems. It is not the first, but it's also not normal. Okay, very much an edge case and payment for order. Brokers usually don't invest in tech that doesn't result in their customers trading more. I think generally with GameStop, we've seen a lot of back office problems such as spikes and failure to delivers. It is possible that distributing the split as a dividend has exposed a lot more problems in how brokers are booking and holding shares for their customers. FINRA should investigate. Even when shares are received, some people report that the broker treated them as trades, not as a split. If broker underinvestments in back office systems cause tax implications for their clients, that is a huge problem. You'll want to make sure tax forms are correct next year. This is going to create tons and tons of lawsuits, and this is a problem for brokers, short sellers, and everybody, all the bigger players behind the scenes, and not a problem for retail. As long as you have patience, you buy the stock, everything falls into place in a certain amount of time. But I just think this is interesting as it's causing such spikes in failure to delivers from a stock split, okay? And it's giving brokers and back offices really a hard time getting shares out to people. This is what is interesting to me. And the reason for that is because if you take a look, GameStop's free float is about 50% DRS. So if they're having trouble with a solid 50%, that is a big issue. They should have 100% of these shares, absolutely no problem. If the DRS ones aren't getting to you, this is an issue, okay? So that's the next thing we're going to go over. Next is U.S. deploys ships and planes near Taiwan as Pelosi eyes visit. The U.S. military is moving assets, including aircraft carriers and large planes, closer to Taiwan ahead of an anticipated but unconfirmed visit to the island by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Guys, this is interesting, and it's something to pay attention to, as we don't want anything bad to happen, but people who invest in the market don't know what's going to happen and don't know what bad is going to happen. Now, I wasn't going to go over the S&P 500 chart, but I just wanted to give you, a little bit of a fair warning at where it's fighting. I think this 419 level is a crucial level to see if the SPY is actually in a rebound or not. If it breaks over 419, I think we're solid. We're going to get that move, but otherwise, until then, it's looking kind of dangerous, and I think the SPY can probably cool off and retap this trend line at some point before getting another rip, breaking that resistance. I don't think it has enough power to do it right now, especially with this uncertainty in the air. Now, as for the options chain, shares available to borrow, the fee, nothing's really hyped right now. We are winning on the option chain, calls to puts 22,000 to 6,000 on AMC and 10,000 to 7,000 on GameStop. That is it, guys. Please subscribe to the channel. And guys, if you're still watching the video, this is how you can support the channel if you want to. First of all, the like button does help the algorithm kick in. The subscribe button gets me more members to the family. The member link down below, becoming a member monthly, a small payment, does help out. Of course, these small channels, it's not really something I can live off of right now, which I'm trying to get to. That way I can be on this more for you guys. I can be live and do things like that. Also, what really does help me out also is because I'm sponsored. Hit the link pinned in the top of comments and linked in the description. If you download Moomoo and just deposit any amount, it can be 50 cents. You will get up to 10 free stocks. So it literally helps you out, helps me out. That's another way to support. Also, super thanks is under the video. And I don't do this at all, ever. But if you guys do want to support the channel, I do appreciate it. That is it, guys. I love you all. Lottery Stocks out.